Back in 2006, I was living with my mother, my cat, and my little brother in a tiny apartment on the fourth floor. I almost always slept with my face towards the wall and my feet pointing towards the door. My cat usually slept on my legs. One night, I was awoken by the kitchen door being thrown shut. It had a distinct sound due to the glass panels. I didn't think much of it, since it could have been my mother grabbing something to drink, or my brother sleepwalking again. I heard footsteps on the floor, walking around. Half asleep, I called out, "Mom?" It went silent. I listened into the darkness. I could hear my mom's muffled snoring in her room. I got worried, especially when the footsteps started again. I peeked out the door, which was open just a crack, but couldn't see anyone. My eyes were accustomed to the dark by that point. I could hear the kitchen door being opened, then slammed shut again, and again and again. After about 10 times, my cat and I were freaking the fuck out. I decided the best thing to do was to grab the sharp blade I had next to my bed with one hand, while laying down again and pretending to sleep. Finally, the door slamming stopped, but the footsteps started again. They were slowly coming toward my room. My cat freaked, jumped up and ran and hid in the corner. Whatever it was finally reached my door, but it didn't move, didn't make a sound. Suddenly, I could feel a cold wall behind me. You know how dry ice fog looks when it's flowing down off of something, like a waterfall? It felt exactly like that, except there was no visual cue. It was just the feeling of something extremely big and extremely cold right next to my back. It felt as if whatever it was staring down at me. I played Sleeping Beauty, but my heart was racing. I didn't look, didn't dare to move or breathe. Then all of a sudden, it was gone. I told my mom about it in the morning. She didn't think much of it. She's neither religious nor believes in supernatural stuff. The next couple of days were even weirder though, because they didn't happen to me, but my mom. 2 days after my incident, my mother told me that she woke up from a nightmare in the middle of the night and could feel a presence in her room. She didn't see or hear anything specific, but she said that she could feel that something was in the room with her. I didn't notice anything that night and slept like a baby. The following night, I was awoken by a loud scream of fear from my mother. I jumped up and without missing a beat grabbed my blade again. I stormed into her room, where she sat upright, shivering and sweating. She told me that 2 men were in her room, a tall guy and a slightly smaller one. They were just standing a couple feet from her, staring. The next morning, she told me that the tall guy was about 6'2", and the smaller guy was maybe 5'6". The smaller guy had a very old face and was wearing a leather jacket. She couldn't see the tall guy's face, like there was a constant shadow on it. When I was storming towards her room, she said they dematerialized into blue and black particles and vanished into the floor. She said it looked just like that one horror show you always watch. She was referring to Supernatural. The night after, I once again woke up to a scream. This time, however, it was the most bone-shattering scream of fear I have ever heard. I was too scared to move or to do anything. I heard my mother whimper and then scream out, "Go away! Get the fuck away from me!" multiple times. This was the point where I found my balls and ran to her room. I could see her laying in bed, once again shivering. In the morning, she told me that the 2 men came back. This time they were not a couple of feet away from her though, but a couple of inches away from her face. They were standing over her, bending down, and coming closer and closer, which is when she screamed at them, and they vanished the same way they did before. We couldn't figure out what the hell was going on, so she spoke with her best friend. My mother was a painter at that time. She had just finished painting a female Chinese dragon. According to her friend, The image was probably the source of the ghosts. That the dragon pictured was known to attract negative spirits. She said we should hang the picture on the balcony, facing the wall. So we tried it, and after we did that, the men never came back. I still don't know what we witnessed, but let me tell you, it was scary as shit.
The Big Cat. Many years ago, I went down to Daytona Beach for spring break. Well, actually, I ran away from home. I was 22 at the time, and in a really bad relationship. I decided the only way to end it was to leave. So I did. I jumped on a bus with nothing but my guitar, and went to Daytona Beach. I had a friend in Daytona, actually Ormond Beach, and we had some good times together. He had a motorcycle, and we rode a lot on that bike. But my favorite thing to do was to ride the motorcycle at night through Bulow Creek State Park. The trees there were wonderful. They were amazing and formed a tunnel around the road with their branches. Every night, we would go for a ride through that beautiful park. It was so wonderful, and I think about it all the time. One night, when we were out for a ride, we were normally just cruising through the lonely road. We noticed something on the side of the road. We didn't know what it was at first, and I thought it was a wild boar. But as we got closer, we realized it was a freaking Florida panther. And that was amazing because at the time, there were maybe only 50 Florida panthers in the wild. My awe changed to fear, and suddenly the engine on the motorcycle died, right as we came up to the panther, and it looked at us, and knew we were there. My buddy tried to start the motorcycle. He couldn't get it to start. The panther didn't do anything at first. It was watching us closely. My friend kept trying to start the motorcycle, and like a scene in a movie, as the panther seemed to get ready to move in our direction, the motorcycle started, and we took off. I didn't even look back. I'm happy to have experienced seeing a Florida panther in the wild, but I'm glad I didn't find out what they might do.
Several years ago now, I was at my friend Nick's house. I had to have been about 12. They lived in this really nice old home in a decent part of town. We were in his back room playing some Sega Genesis, home alone as his mother went to meet a friend, and his cat comes in and starts pestering us. Nick knows that she wants some food, so he asks, "Want to come down to the basement and feed the cat with me?" So I say, "Sure." We make our way through the kitchen, and we get to the staircase that leads down to the basement. Now I already wasn't too fond of it down there. There'd been instances before where I had been locked down there as a joke. We would pull that kind of stuff on each other all the time. Since it's a fairly old house, the basement wasn't the nicest place. It had old, small, cloudy windows that hardly let any light in. Nick's parents collected a lot of random things, and it was all in piles down there, with a path just wide enough for two people to navigate. Nick turns on the light, and we make our way down. I tell him to go first. I don't want him luring me halfway down and locking the door behind me. He gets to the bottom of the stairs and calls up, "Evan, you coming?" I made my way down and looked around. I'd never seen his cat's dish down here, so I have no idea where we're going. "The cat's food is over there," Nick says, as he points to a small nook towards the back of the giant basement. So we walk over there, the cold cement floor making each step quicker and quicker. We get to the little dish, and of course, it's completely empty. Nick grabs the bag of food sitting beside it and starts to pour it in. I notice that there's an old wooden door in the nook, so I tug at Nick's shirt and say, "What's behind there?" He looks up and shrugs. "I don't know, I think it's a cellar." For some reason or another, my curiosity got the better of me. "Why don't we take a look?" His parents had all sorts of cool stuff down there, like crazy bird cages, masks, and armoires filled with old toys and clothes. I half expected to find a room full of riches. Nick opens the door, but it's pitch black in there. It was certainly a cellar. It had a cold, dank smell pouring out of it. The orange glow from the light by the stairs didn't quite make it all the way to the room. We stand in the doorway, and Nick reaches in to find the light. I remember hearing his hand knocking around as he searched for a switch. Then, click, the light flickers on, and in the middle of the room is a rocking chair, slowly rocking back and forth. We stood there, watching it make full rocks from front to back, showing no signs of stopping. Nick just lets out a yelp, and I try to find my voice to let one out too, but I couldn't make a sound. We both spun around and scrambled as fast as we could out of the basement. We went up 2 flights of stairs to the 2nd floor, faster than I thought was humanly possible. We jumped onto his bed and just waited there until his mom got home. Later that night, I told the story to my mother. She seemed a little freaked out, but tells me that we must have bumped into it. Eventually my mom brought up the story to Nick's mother, and here's where it gets even freakier. Apparently, when they purchased the house, it came with a lot of furniture in it. They used to keep that rocking chair in Nick's sister's room, but occasionally she would complain of it rocking at night when she was trying to fall asleep. They didn't believe her, but one night while Nick's mom was in checking up on her, she opened the door to the room and saw the rocking chair, slowly rocking back and forth, just as we had seen it in the basement that day. Don't ask me why they didn't just get rid of the chair, but they stored it down in the basement cellar for years and years, before we had rediscovered it. That scene is forever etched in my mind, and makes my hair stand on end just remembering it.
Mean Kitten. I don't really know if this story is scary or not, but it's really, really strange. It didn't happen to me either. It happened to my mother. I'm just relaying it. We lived in San Diego, and I guess I wanted a cat. I don't remember it at all. And we picked up this kitten because it was cute. We brought it home, and gave it the very clever name of Kitty. It was such a nice cat, until we left it alone with my mom. When we were in bed, the kitten began growling at my mom. She tried to be friendly with it, but it slashed its claws at her and tried to bite her. But when she moved away from it, it actually chased her. My mom ran to her room, closed the door. She heard the cat growling outside of the door. It tried reaching under the door. The following morning, when we were eating breakfast, the cat was purring at my feet. It was docile and loving, but the moment we caught our bus, she went back into the house. The cat was growling at her. She grabbed the broom to try to protect herself, but the cat didn't make a move right away. It just puffed up and growled at my mom. And this went on for a couple of weeks. A lot of the housework was not done because my mom spent all of her time hiding from the cat. And the last straw was when the cat realized that reaching under the door was not working, so it pounded against the door. Now, a small kitten could not break down a door, but the very fact that it was trying was scary. My mom had had enough. We were upset, but my mom had to give the kitty away. We didn't get another cat until I was 10 years old. Again, We named it Kitty.
Hey guys and ladies, thanks for watching. If you want me to tell your story or read a creepypasta, email me at the address in the description. I want to thank Killer Orange Cat for working with me again. He's a good dude. Actually, he was the guy I listened to before I started doing this. I think I liked him so much because he was just being himself. Anyways, if for any reason you haven't ever checked him out, there's a link to his channel in the description. Alrighty. Be good to animals, even people.
Sit. Skjál, snemar, bergsbus, hreish.
This was the point where I found my balls